As a Florida woman is being sentenced for killing her terminally ill husband. Again, this all happening out of Daytona Beach, Florida. And the court documents indicate that the couple had agreed to a murder-suicide plan. But Ellen Gilland, who is the one being sentenced, she did not follow through on taking her own life. Instead, she ended up in a standoff with police before being taken into custody. Let's listen into this a little bit more. I'll pop up some boxes for you so we can just watch and see when these other events do start.
While it was failing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It wasn't like that huge time where he's trying to get it to work. It wasn't after that point. It was during that time.
Okay. And while you were on scene, I think Ms. Gillen expressed multiple times that she wanted to take her own life.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not listening to the conversation. The hostage negotiators are in conversation with them. I'm in contact with my commander, who's in contact with them. A couple of times I may have overheard what she was saying, but I'm really concentrated on what's going on with my guys. I do remember a few things of what she said, but not really the conversation.
And the round that went off, would you agree, based on the flashbang and the confusion that can create, Ms. Gillen could have been trying to take her own life at that point? And
no, absolutely
went off
not.
The ceiling. You wouldn't
No, I
agree with
do
that?
not agree with that.
Okay. Just a moment, Judge. Nothing further. Thank you, Sergeant. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Sergeant. You can sit down.
And Your Honor, state has no further witnesses.
All right. And Mr. Ferry.
Judge, we call Dr. Stephen Nelson up against the conflict, so we can take him first.
He's supposed to be logged on to Zoom, right? He's not currently logged on. He was logged on earlier. I did get a message.
All right, so as it does appear that there is a pause in the audio right now, I just did want to take this time to share with you, if you are just joining us, what we are looking at right now. And this is coming out of Daytona Beach, Florida, after a Florida woman who you're seeing on your screen right now is expected to be sentenced for this 2023 deadly shooting of her terminally ill husband in a Daytona Beach hospital room. And on your screen is Ellen Gilland. She's 78 years old, and she's facing sentencing for allegedly shooting and killing her 77-year-old husband, Jerry, back in 2023. And as I said, as I was introducing this story, these court documents indicated that this couple did agree to this murder-suicide plan. However, she did not follow through on taking her own life. Instead, she did end up in a standoff with police before being taken into custody. And what we don't know right now is it does remain unclear whether her sentencing will result in a lengthy prison term, a reduced sentence, or potential leniency due to her age and circumstances. Additionally, it is unknown if the case will influence future discussions on end-of-life laws in Florida. Just a little bit more background here is her husband was suffering from a terminal illness, and according to the court records, the couple had agreed on this plan for him to die by her hand. However, Florida law does not allow medically assisted suicide. It does look like maybe there is some more commentary now. Let's turn up the sound.
Your Honor, I do have copies of Dr. Nelson and Dr. Danziger's CVs. I don't intend to admit them into evidence as exhibits, but I guess I could provide it to the court just for, I'm going to ask them questions about it if the court would like to review it.
Okay. Any objection, Mr. Interlocutio, to me reviewing that?
No.
Okay. And you can approach with that or hand it to the clerk. I'm familiar with Dr. Danziger.
This is Dr. Stephen Nelson.
Well, he said he's handed me both.
Oh, well, okay. I'm familiar with Dr. Gedanken. I've known him for years as well.
All right, and we are going to transition now to another story as we are getting this press conference into our newsroom live right now on this window washer that's dangling on the 78th floor.
On it. When units pulled up, it was the scaffolding wasn't attached and it was swinging around and smacking into the building. There was glass all over the street. Units acted quickly and secured the street for pedestrians walking by. When they got up on the 78th floor, they saw the window was blown out, glass everywhere. The units acted quickly. Ladder 4, Engine 23, and Rescue 1 were able to secure the scaffolding with ropes. They realized that the workers inside the scaffolding was not secure to safety lines, so they were able to put lines over inside the bucket and secure them. Shortly after that, they were able to bring them into the building safely, and they were treated by EMS, and they were transported to Cornell. They were both in stable condition. I'm going to pass it off to Lieutenant Schneider from Ladder 4. Units did an excellent job at this, and Ladder 4 is here to speak about it.
I'm Lieutenant Nick Schneider, SCHNEIDER. From Ladder Company 4. When we arrived on scene, initially we got the ticket for scaffolding hanging. And, pulled up on scene on the corner of 8th and 58th here. My chauffeur leaned over to me and said, gave me a confirmation, said we do actually have scaffolding, it's hanging. So he made a great decision to block off the street from traffic, any sort of pedestrians. About that time, 23 Engine had come from the west, and they did the same thing. The officer from 23 Engine was making the transmissions, confirming what we had. Both chauffeurs did a great job blocking off the street and securing the area. We made our way up to the 78th floor. Just ahead of us, 23 Engine had taken another elevator. They brought a life-saving rope. Ladder 4 had brought life-saving ropes and utility ropes to the 78th floor. We also sent our roof firefighter to the roof. Once we got up there, as soon as we opened the apartment, the door to the elevator rather, I could feel like a gust of air. I knew that the window had been taken at that point. Came into the room, and they were swinging back and forth, and the scaffolding was twisting. We were able to get eyes on 2 occupants, communicated down to 9th Battalion, let them know that we confirmed that there were actually occupants inside the scaffolding, and they were not secured. They weren't tied off. They had harnesses on, but for some reason they were not secured to any sort of safety lines. Members of 23 Engine and 4 Truck acted quickly using 23 Engine's life-saving rope tied to a substantial object. Then we're able to tie off the left-hand side of the scaffolding. Once that was secured, Rescue 1 had actually just made their way up to the apartment at that point. Had a quick discussion with the officer from Rescue 1, and Rescue 1 members then had all their equipment up there. They acted quickly, tied off the substantial object to the right side of the scaffolding, secured that side, and then they went to work. They immediately had their members secured, tied life safety lines onto the two occupants of the scaffolding. And as soon as they were all secured, members of Rescue 1 started going through their evolution and getting them closer, the occupants in the scaffolding, closer to the building.
How would you describe the danger that these guys were in?
It was the occupants of the well, actually both. I'll say that it was extremely dangerous obviously for the occupants of the scaffolding, but initially when we got on scene, it was extremely dangerous for members of the FDNY. The sill to the window on these buildings, it was incredibly low. I mean, they have a full picture window. All that glass had been taken. There was broken glass everywhere. There was a high wind factor blowing into the building. There's glass pretty much raining all over the sidewalk when we pulled up. But also we had to be careful for our members that we're operating essentially on the ledge of a 78-story building. So it was very difficult for us. But I couldn't believe what I was seeing, the fact that they weren't tied off. So they kept trying to stand up in the scaffolding, and members of all the companies that were here, we told them, we kept telling them to sit down, and fortunately both sides of the scaffolding remained level because they weren't secured to anything.
All right, next question.
Explain, Lieutenant, we see in video that the scaffolding is twisting and turning. Is that because there was no safety line? Can you explain why it was?
I can't speak to that. I don't know why it was rotating. It was extremely windy. I don't have the physics behind it, why it was actually spinning, but it was very windy up there. As you know, or you may not know, whatever the wind's like on the street level, once you get up to the 78th floor, it's a whole different ball game.
John,
What information do you know about the victims, like how old they are, or how long they've been?
I can't speak to that.
was there anybody inside of the building on the 78th floor?
Yes, there was. There was the occupants of the apartment, and then of course, members of, our companies, 23 Engine, Rescue 1, and Ladder 4 were kind of securing that area. But the occupants of the building were in there, and of that apartment as well. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Knowing they weren't secure, knowing that window, when you got them into that apartment, just walk us through that moment when you knew they were safe and everything was safe.
Members of Rescue 1, members of Rescue 1, well, actually all the members down here in the 9th Battalion, they do this stuff and they train for this stuff day in and day out. 23 Engine, they're an engine company, but they showed up on the floor of the incident, and they had a lifesaver rope. Everybody's squared away, everybody trains here, so they knew exactly what to do. And then once Rescue 1 got up there, they have a different set of skills and training, and they're incredibly adept to dealing with this stuff. So the evolution goes pretty quickly once you get up there and you have the members up there that know what they're doing. So.
All right.
Were they on the 75th or 78th floor?
I believe it was the 78th floor, yeah.
Do you know how many feet that actually is high?
I don't know.
Floors or anything? No,
I don't know.
78th.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
Great job, guys.
And that concludes that press conference that we just got, hearing from FDNY, as we are now learning that it was not one window washer, but there were two window washers. Thankfully, they are both fine. As of right now, they can't speak to who exactly those two individuals were. They said they could not provide any information on that. But they were saying that what made this difficult was that it was very windy today in New York City, and especially as you got higher up, closer to that 78th floor, that was a factor. But the takeaway here, both of those individuals are okay. When we were first bringing this to you, we thought it was one individual, but it is two. All right, so we're going to go away for another break here on Live Now from Fox. Much more to come. And welcome in here. We do continue to follow the latest out of Washington, D.C., where right now Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting with President Donald Trump. And we actually did just get this in here moments ago from the Ukrainian president as he posted on X. Here is that full statement for you as it does get cut off on your screen. An important visit to the United States. In Washington, I met with a bipartisan delegation from the U.S. Senate. Our discussions focused on the continued military assistance for Ukraine, relevant legislative initiatives, my meeting with President Trump, efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace, our vision for ending the war, and the importance of robust security guarantees. We take pride in having strategic partners and friends like the United States. We are grateful for the unwavering and bipartisan support for Ukraine throughout all 3 years of Russia's full-scale aggression. That coming in moments ago from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as again, they are meeting right now. We've been following this very closely here on Live Now from Fox because, of course, we're keeping an eye on this signing of the minerals deal between the United States and Ukraine, as it could lead us a step closer to the end of that war. So we did want to bring that to you on Live Now from Fox as we are getting that update, and we are expecting some taped playback of this discussion between the two of them. Also expecting a press conference a little bit later. I believe that is slated for 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we will plan to bring that to you on Live Now from Fox. This all coming, of course, after President Trump has said that the United States has spent too much taxpayer money to support Ukraine in the war with Russia. And he is saying here that this is their chance to pay back the United States for the investment, the taxpayer investment from the United States for aid sent to Ukraine under President Joe Biden. Let's take our final 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. A lot more news and live events to come. And we're back here on Live Now from Fox. Did want to take this opportunity to remind you here that if you'd like to watch President Donald Trump's address to Congress, we're going to have that here Tuesday, March 4th. That all begins at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it uninterrupted. And throughout the day, we're going to have continuous team coverage leading up to the event. I do want to head back to a live event that we have been bringing you here as we do await some other ones to start. This is coming out of Florida. As we continue to follow this, a Florida woman is being sentenced for killing her terminally ill husband. So we are going to go sit in on that. My name's Christy Matino. I'm going to be handing off to my colleague, Karel Lahara. You're watching Live Now from Fox.
Psychiatry, addiction psychiatry, forensic psychiatry, and geriatric psychiatry. And while I maintain an office practice in Maitland, a general psych practice, I also practice in the realm of forensic psychiatry.
What is forensic psychiatry?
Forensic psychiatry, forensic simply refers to interaction with the legal system.
All right.
So as a forensic psychiatrist, I'm asked to offer opinions to lawyers, judges, juries about people's mental state as it applies to some legal situation. It might be a criminal case, such as the matter today, might be a civil case, might be a probate case involving a will contest, or might be a fitness for duty assessment. So it's simply offering opinions about people's mental and emotional state in a legal setting.
And you testified in criminal cases, civil cases, and also have you testified in federal court as well?
I have. I've testified throughout the state of Florida, essentially from Key West to Pensacola, and I've also testified and been qualified to do so in federal courts throughout the state.
Okay. As it relates to Miss Gillen's case, how were you involved?
I was asked to see her by your office shortly after her arrest on these charges. And initially I was asked to evaluate her. It was in early February 2023 regarding her mental state at the time, what psychiatric disorders she suffered from, the risk of violence, and initially it was also with regard to whether she would be safe to be released into the community on bond, which ultimately was granted by the court.
And when conducting that evaluation of Miss Gillen, did you take into account her medical history?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the court what is Miss Gillen's medical history?
Ms. Gillum has a complex medical history. She has a number of chronic illnesses, meaning they've been present for many years, and that includes diabetes, severe osteoarthritis, hyperlipidemia, reflux disease, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. In addition, she has a history of breast cancer. First bout was 1979 with a mastectomy and reconstructive surgery. There was a recurrence of breast cancer in 2018, which again required a mastectomy and further treatment by oncologists. Further complicating her history are multiple orthopedic procedures. I believe she has an artificial hip on the left, a pin in the right hip. She has rods in both femurs, and I believe she had a right knee replacement. So because of that, she walks or ambulates very slowly with a walker. There are elements of chronic pain, and because of the arthritis and the various orthopedic procedures, it interferes with her sleep. So this is someone who's now 78 years old and has a complicated medical history.
When doing the psychiatric evaluation of Miss Gillen, do you also ask her questions as it relates to her substance abuse history at all?
Yes.
Okay, and to your knowledge, does Miss Gillen have any substance abuse issues whatsoever?
No. There was no history of any issues with the abuse of alcohol, no histories with the use of street drugs, no history of the misuse of prescription medications. To be precise, she might occasionally use a CBD gummy to help with sleep and pain, but all of that was legal and authorized. And those only perhaps twice a month. So no history of substance use disorders.
Did she have any psychiatric history whatsoever?
Nothing prior to 2023. This was someone who had not otherwise suffered from depression, psychiatric hospitalizations, mental illness, suicide attempts, violent or aggressive behavior. What took place in late 2022, early 2023 was a first episode of mental illness.
Okay. Did you perform a mental status examination upon her when you're doing the psychiatric evaluation?
Yes.
Okay, and what did that reveal?
What it revealed, by the time I saw her on February 5, she was in better shape than she had been. The suicidal intention and plans had passed. She was generally cooperative and pleasant, about 4 feet 9 inches tall, elderly, ambulating with a walker, moving very slowly, sad but not despondent, cooperative and pleasant, normal speech, motor behavior was normal, her flow of thought was logical, sequential, and coherent, no auditory, visual, or tactile hallucinations, no paranoia or any other delusions, sad, unhappy at her circumstances, grieving the death of her spouse, cognitive, not agitated, irritable, hostile. Her cognitive abilities were intact. One of the things I checked for, she was 76 at the time, were there any signs of dementia or cognitive impairment? Perhaps some very slight difficulties with memory, but essentially she was cognitively intact and not demented.
Did you, when doing this evaluation, did you also conduct a risk assessment at the time?
I did.
And what did that reveal?
Essentially, what I opined and testified before, I believe it was Judge Foxman, was that this was unlikely to occur again, that in her present mental state, the risk of future violence was low based on demographic factors, her medical condition, her psychiatric state. And indeed, my understanding is she's been on bond for, I believe, 23 months now with no recurrence, so suggested that my opinion in that matter was accurate. Of course, nobody can say there's zero risk, but I opine that the risk of her being released into the community, into a setting where she could reside in the community, the risk would be very low.
Okay. So following that evaluation, did you also recently meet with Ms. Gillen for a follow-up evaluation?
I did, and that took place exactly 2 years after my first assessment. That was by Zoom, and that was on February 5, 2025, just 23 days ago.
Okay. And has your opinion changed as relates to Ms. Gillen, the risk assessment, or any of the other things we went over?
It would not. When I met with her, she was on antidepressant medications. She was on an anti-anxiety medication, no controlled substances, no issues that she's abusing substances, not suicidal, not violent. Symptoms of mental illness appear to be well controlled. So I did not see her as representing any imminent risk of harm or danger while living in the community. And perhaps the most important factor of that is she's been in the community for 23 months now. I believe 2 years will be next month. I'm not aware of any indications where she's violated the terms of her bond or represented any threat of harm to herself or anyone else in the past nearly 2 years.
And this morning you've watched, I guess, some of the body cam videos and some of the testimony in the case?
Yes, I've been here since court was in session this morning.
Okay. By reviewing the testimony today, and I guess, and also some of the body cams, are there any other potential mitigating factors for Ms. Gillen from your standpoint that could be beneficial to her?
First, it's my opinion at her advanced age, with her long list of medical problems, she suffers from a number of medical issues unrelated to substance use. They are complex. In addition to her chronic illnesses that I listed in chronic pain, she's had a recurrence of cancer before. She would be at risk of a recurrence of cancer. As far as I know, she's still cancer-free. This is someone with multiple medical problems, limited functional ability, only likely to get worse as she ages, and that may be a factor the court wishes to take into consideration in the calculation of determining her disposition. Further, it's my opinion at the time of this incident back in January 2023. I saw Ms. Gillen, of course, barely 2 weeks after the incident, so I spoke with her about her mental state at the time. She wrote a suicide note. Essentially, this was a murder-suicide where she did not go through the suicide, ultimately leading to what we saw today. I was not of the opinion this met insanity criteria, and I'm not offering the opinion to the court either then or now that this met the strict criteria for insanity as defined in the Florida statutes. However, it is my opinion that at the time of this incident, Ms. Gillen was significantly psychiatrically ill, suffering from a major depressive disorder of suicidal proportions, triggered by the decline of her husband of 53 years, his suffering, her belief that without him she should die as well, that he was suffering and his life should end. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it met criteria for insanity, and I understand the fear and distress her actions caused to others. It's evident from the testimony I heard today and the testimony of law enforcement and the various hospital employees. But it's my opinion her mindset was so altered in the prism of her extremely depressed and suicidal state. Her judgment and reasoning was altered. She justified in her mind, I'm probably going to die anyway and will be better off, the both of us. So it's my opinion her ability to appreciate the criminal nature of her conduct on that day was substantially impaired. And I offer that opinion for the consideration of the court as a potential mitigator to consider in determining the disposition of Ms. Gillen.
No further questions.
I have a couple questions before Mr. Interlicchio asks. Doctor, have you had a chance to look at Ms. Gillen's statement that was attached to the pre-sentence investigation?
I've not seen that, Your Honor.
Okay. Would that be something that would affect your statements here today, your opinions perhaps?
It could. I don't know what's in it, so the answer is perhaps, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead, Mr. Interlicchio.
And good afternoon, Mr. Interlicchio. It's now past 12.
It is.
And nice to see you 24 hours later.
I know. It's good to see you always. Now, the conditions that you described, her health conditions, she had many of those back on January 21st, 2023.
Yes, by the definition of chronic means these are long-lasting. And yes, those were present back then and continue to the present.
All right, so even with those medical conditions, she was able to retrieve a gun, buy ammunition that morning, go to the hospital, kill her husband, threaten hospital employees, and fire a round at the cops. I mean, just because she's older and has these medical conditions doesn't mean she's harmless. Wouldn't you agree?
That's correct, and I'm not opining as to harmless. I'm opining as to future risk.
Now, you'd agree, and I think you've already stated that her actions that day did cause harm to the others, as you've heard from the nurse and from other employees at the hospital, that how it's impacted them.
I have no doubt of that.
And just because of her age and her health conditions, you would agree she doesn't get to get a free pass. She still deserves to be punished for her crime.
And of course, that's an issue for the judge to determine. I know we're here today on a sentencing and her disposition will be determined. I'm not, certainly, and I wanted to say that on direct, I'm not opining as to insanity or any sort of pass. We're here at a sentencing. There will be some disposition which Your Honor will calculate and decide.
All right. And as you described it, because she's medicated now, she's no longer suicidal.
She's not suicidal now. As of when I met with her on 23 days ago, I did not see a risk of suicide or the need for any such intervention.
All right. And that's due to the medication that she was taking?
Depressive episodes are not always long-lasting. Sometimes they remit spontaneously, but it's a wise idea, in my opinion, that she is on appropriate antidepressant medication. I think that's a wise strategy by her treating physician.
And same goes for Mr. Gillen, though, right? He came into that hospital. I don't know if you're aware of this. Did you review any of the medical records as it relates to Mr. Gillen or have any understanding of that?
I've not been supplied with the medical records, but I certainly heard the testimony today that he had a number of severe medical problems in the discussions of hospice, meaning his condition was likely terminal, and that there were references to suicidality. I don't know if there was ever any psychiatric or psychological assessment of him during his 20-odd days in the hospital, but I heard the testimony that there were references to wanting to die and then later references that may have remitted.
Okay. And so, like Seroquel, that's a typical narcotic that's given, or not narcotic, but a drug that's given for mental health reasons?
It is. It's actually an antipsychotic medication used in the treatment of schizophrenia and also used as a mood stabilizer in bipolar disorder. However, if someone is in a delirious state and agitated, delirium meaning their ability to attend and focus is compromised, they may hallucinate, be disoriented, agitated, Seroquel can be used as a short-term measure to help control the agitation while the cause of the delirium is identified.
And so, as you've heard some of the testimony here today, Mr. Gillen shows up at the hospital into that selective care ward, and he's got that condition. He's suffering from delirium. They get it under control, and his suicidal ideations disappear.
Whether it disappeared or not, I don't know. I'll simply agree with Dr. Nelson. There was no further documentation. What I don't know, if there was ever an assessment, as often occurs when someone references suicide by a psychiatrist or psychologist with privileges at that facility. I don't know if that did or did not occur.
But if the medical records did demonstrate that nursing or staffing there kept checking in on him, looked into that suicidal ideations, and there were none, would that demonstrate that he didn't have any suicidal ideations?
Well, of course, the record would speak for itself. If he was denying it, he was denying it.
All right, so then someone who wasn't suicidal on January 21st was then, I guess, ultimately murdered then by his wife? Because
there's no question that physically Ms. Gillen shot her husband. I'm not disputing that. Whether it meets the legal definition of murder versus manslaughter, I'll defer to the court and the attorneys.
Okay, but understanding there was no evidence, or at least anything demonstrable, that on January 21st he wanted to die.
I'm not aware of anything in the record. I'll agree with you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, doctor. You can step down.
Thank you. May I be excused, Your Honor?
Yes, have a good day, sir.
So we're listening here as testimony continues there in Florida regarding the sentencing of a 78-year-old woman charged with killing her husband. Now, this is what we know so far, and I do want to bring up some footage of this woman. You can see her here on your screen. This is 78-year-old Ellen Gilland, facing a sentencing for allegedly shooting and killing her 77-year-old husband, Jerry, in a hospital bed at Admin Health Daytona Beach back in January of 2023. Now, court documents do indicate that the couple had agreed to a murder-suicide plan, but Gilland did not follow through on taking her own life. Instead, she ended up in a standoff with police before being taken into custody. We're going to continue with more from out of Florida and also several other events that we are monitoring here at Live Now from Fox. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday, February 28th. I'm your host, Carl Lahara, and I'll be with you throughout the next several hours, continuing to guide you through the day's top stories, showcasing live events from around the world. We're stepping away for our first commercial break, but a reminder that we are monitoring a meeting happening right now with President Donald Trump and also Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We'll have more information later on today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, where we have a pretty busy Friday ahead of us. One of the bigger stories that we are following, the fact that right now President Donald Trump is meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in the White House to sign a minerals deal. This deal comes just a few days after the 3-year anniversary of Russia invading Ukraine. We are expecting a playback of the conversation that they had in the Oval Office, where they'll be answering some questions from the press. And then later on today, they are expected to hold a joint news conference, very similar to what we saw just yesterday with the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. So we're expecting that, and we'll bring it to you as soon as we have it. But in the meantime, let's head back to the story that we were on just before the commercial break. Out of Florida, a 78-year-old woman to be sentenced today after she was charged with murdering her terminally ill husband. Let's continue to listen in to some of this testimony.
Some of these other states?
Oregon was the original state to pass a medical aid and dying law. It was in 1997, and it was the Oregon Death with Dignity Act. And all of the other bills or laws in the 10 states and D.C. are modeled after Oregon.
Okay. And can you tell the court briefly if the bill was passed, what is the process for somebody to obtain end-of-life treatment or medication?
Basically what happens, you have to meet 4 major requirements to qualify for medical aid and dying. You have to be an adult over the age of 18, and in our case, you'd also have to be a resident of the state of Florida. You have to be diagnosed by 2 independent physicians of having a terminal illness with a projected prognosis of less than 6 months to live, and you have to be judged by both physicians to be mentally capable of making your own health care decisions, and you also have to be able to self-administer the medication.
Okay. So if legislation like this, I guess, had been in place at the time of this, it could have impacted Ms. Gillen's options, or?
I think if Florida had a law, it would give the Gillians and a lot of people that are facing long protracted illnesses another choice. Gives them having the ability to control your death is very important to people at the end of life, and having the ability to choose to having an additional choice at the end of life is very important.
Okay. It's something obviously that could have prevented, potentially an incident like this if it wasn't in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say their exact situation, but I do know, based on studies from other states, that individuals that are elderly and have a terminal illness are generally twice as likely to take their own life. Having a medical aid and dying law gives them another option, one that allows them to take the medication, fall asleep in 2 to 3 minutes, and the average is they pass away peacefully in their sleep in 1 to 2 hours.
Okay. I don't have anything further for you. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Sure.
Statement and some questions.
Now, good afternoon. Now, you described it that with this plan or whatever that you're just proposing, that someone would get the right to choose to die if they wanted to, if they were terminal, right?
Yes, it's about self-determination and bodily autonomy.
And while there's nothing wrong with that, they would have to be examined by 2 doctors, right?
Correct.
So 2 doctors would have to elicit some sort of testimony from the victim saying, I want to die.
Well, there's a process to be qualified. There's a series of meetings with the original, what we call the prescribing doctor. He counsels the individual when they request medical aid and dying about all the other options that are available in the state and the results of pursuing any one of those options. And he also determines the mental capabilities to make their health care decisions, and this is confirmed by the consulting physician.
But again, there would at least be somebody out there, a medical professional, that would have made these evaluations, right?
Correct.
So this wouldn't be an instance like what we have here where somebody is murdered, they write a note that day, and we don't know if that was his ever desire to be killed that day.
I wouldn't know what the thought was of that day, but I agree with you. The issue is having the availability is what we're advocating for.
And you would not advocate, though, for taking a hostage a hospital, right?
No.
And you wouldn't advocate for, there was 34 rooms, so 33 other loved ones and families being unable to visit their loved ones in those conditions, right?
No.
Nothing further.
No redirect, Judge.
Okay, thank you, sir. You may step down. Let's talk about timing because we're a little bit past noon now. How many additional witnesses does the defense have?
One, Your Honor.
Okay, and is that the defendant?
Yes.
Okay, and how long do you anticipate that'll be?
10 minutes.
Okay, and then for closing arguments, what's the state thinking?
It would not be long. I don't think it's a lengthy closing argument on this.
Okay.
A lot of my arguments are contained within my sentencing memorandum, so I don't want to just regurgitate what I previously told the court.
Okay, why don't we just take then maybe a 5 or 10 minute break, 10 minutes, we'll be in recess for 10 minutes and come back and finish up.
All right, we are in recess.
So you just heard there the judge presiding over this case in Florida, and there on your screen in the purple shirt is that defendant Ellen Gilland, who is going to be sentenced today for killing her terminally ill husband. Now they are going to step away for about a 10-minute recess. It's important to note, though, some of the questioning that we're having here is that Gilland's husband, he was suffering from a terminal illness, and according to court records, the couple had agreed on a tragic plan for him to die by her hand. Florida law does not allow medically assisted suicide, meaning her actions were legally classified as a crime despite her claim that she acted out of love and compassion. Her case has sparked a broader debate about end-of-life choices and whether Florida should reconsider its stance on medically assisted dying. So we'll continue to monitor this entire situation happening there out of the state of Florida. Again, that sentencing supposed to be happening today, and once she is sentenced, we'll bring you all of that news. We're going to step away for another brief commercial break at Live Now from Fox. A couple of live pictures that we do have. This first one, we are seeing yet another protest happening as more federal workers are being laid off. This is concerning USAID. We'll have more on this when we come back. Welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us here at Live Now from Fox. I'm taking you to an event happening out of Washington, D.C. that I previewed just before the commercial break. We continue to see more federal workers protesting, this time outside of the headquarters of USAID in Washington, D.C., as the Trump administration continues to lay off several of these workers. Let's take a listen.
Politics. A starving child knows no politics, and now I've come to live in a Republican administration that apparently is willing to starve any number of children around the world to score a few cheap political points with its base. So we're standing here in front of the Ronald Reagan building, of course, where USAID is headquartered, and right there for the cameras was where somebody defaced the federal building a couple of weeks ago by chiseling the USAID sign off of the building. I wonder who authorized that and what expenditure of public funds was justified to deface the federal building. But what really bothers me about this building right now is that inside, just 100 feet from where we are, is the memorial to the dozens of USAID officers who died for our country, patriotic Americans who died in the hardest working environments in the world. They are memorialized on a plaque which is now blocked from public view by black shrouding. So I have a request for Elon Musk and the president. It's just a short ride over here from the White House. They ought to get in the car, come over here, and look at those dozens of names up on the wall of USAID officers. I just have one last point, because you've been out here in the cold. In addition to working for USAID, I've worked for another part of the U.S. government. I served in the United States Marine Corps as an infantry officer. And I tend to look at USAID's role in terms of national security as well. And so right now, we're pulling out of the strategic South Pacific Islands, where USAID is the only game in town to prevent Chinese dominance. So if people really cared about making America strong and making America secure, why in the hell would they be ending USAID? And I think it's very, very symbolic that Elon Musk and his Children's Crusade are turning this space over to the Department of Homeland Security. Why? Because in stripping USAID people off of the front lines around the world where they're battling threats to our security, sure as hell the Department of Homeland Security is going to have more business right here in the United States of America. So listen, one last request. This is all up to the United States Congress. The United States Congress has got to do its constitutional duty. Call your senator. Call your representative. Don't give up the fight. USAID is one of the best strategic ideas America ever had. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now we're going to introduce Susan Reichley, the former counselor at USAID, the senior foreign service officer.
It's hard to follow our former administrator and our former deputy administrator, but I want to say to all of you, we see you. Thank you. Everybody who is here, we see you around the world and what you are doing. Listen to this. This is not just a pass in the night. This is more than 6 decades of your work that has mattered, that has made a difference. You have not only saved lives from the Green Revolution to the discovery of ORT, oral rehydration therapy, you have done big things. And I know you will continue to do big things because that's what America is about. We are about saving lives. We are about protecting America, our national interests. That is why President Kennedy created USAID, the Peace Corps, and so many institutions that we know and we love. And we are going to keep fighting for USAID. This is not done. And to our colleagues overseas, around the embassies in the world, our partners, all of our partners who are suffering so much, our local partners who have placed so much confidence in the United States of America, we are here. We are not backing down. We are too strong. We are here for you. We are going to keep fighting. So please, this community that has been built and that will continue long after they take this building back. Because guess what? Buildings don't matter. We don't care about real estate, do we? No, we're not in the business of real estate. We're in the business of saving lives and our national interests. So have this building. We're staying together because we are all about development. And there are the 3 Ds: development, diplomacy, and defense. And guess what? We're not giving up, and none of you clearly are giving up. We got to keep strong, keep fighting, and I will pass the mic back. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Susan. And now I'm going to introduce Chris, also a former counselor at USAID.
Thank you. We are USAID, and we are proud. We are USAID. We are proud. We are USAID. We are proud. We are USAID. We are proud. But this is about more than USAID. This is about our democracy. This is about the world's richest man eroding our institutions and bringing dishonor to our country. This is about our values, which are being denigrated. This is about 94% of assistance programs being turned off. This is about humanitarian assistance that got a waiver that is now being turned off. This is about people dying. What a legacy. Which is the criminal organization here? This is about our institutions. Where are you, Congress? Speak up. Do your job. This is about American leadership. It's about our place in the world. It's about supporting democracies, not canceling the programs that hold out light for those under oppression. It's about building a better world. As Susan said, USAID is not this building. USAID are the values we all have, values that unite us, values based on human dignity. No one can take that from you. No one. No one. So we are USAID, and we are proud.
Thanks so much, Chris. Next up, we're going to invite Johnny Walsh, a former senior leader here at USAID and my former boss in the Middle East deal.
Thank you, Dan. I feel like such an imperfect vessel for this. I'm nowhere near as illustrious as the people you just heard from. But I've also just watched my friends, my colleagues, all of these heroes, these patriotic, creative, strategic American heroes walk out of the building, carrying their boxes in images that I hope will last for generations.
We're listening here as protesters gather outside of the headquarters of the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID. Workers there, according to some reporting from Reuters, allowed to briefly re-enter the headquarters building to collect their personal belongings and clear out their desks. It comes a day after President Trump's administration said it was cutting more than 90% of the agency's contracts. So we just wanted to dip into this event just briefly, but I want to head back out to Florida and Daytona, Florida, specifically to continue to listen in to more of this sentencing for a woman that has been charged with killing her terminally ill husband. That is who you're seeing on your screen there, 78-year-old Ellen Gillen. Let's watch.
Just like any other cross-exam, would be limited to the subject of the testimony.
I think there'd be some leeway in there, but if we're talking about the facts of the case, I think I can get into the facts of the case. I don't know how you can make a statement and not discuss what we're here for today.
Why don't we play it by ear? I'm going to let you cross, and then as to the topics of the questions, if there's an objection, you can object. All right, go ahead, ma'am. You can read your statement. Are you comfortable there at the podium?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
Your Honor, for 2 years, I've been preparing myself mentally and emotionally to spend the rest of my life in prison. When I was first arrested, I spent 7 weeks in the Volusia County Jail. The first 2.5 weeks were in the hospital area under suicide watch. The rest of the time I spent in general population. This time spent incarcerated has given me an idea of what my time in prison might be like. In the last few weeks, the prosecution has offered the possibility of a reprieve, and I am grateful. My name is Ellen Gilland. I was born in Iowa in 1946, and my parents, my older sister, and my younger brother moved to Ormond Beach, Florida in 1949. My father was a building contractor and built homes in Ormond Beach area. My mother was a teacher and elementary school principal. My younger sister was born in 1954, and we moved to Winter Park, Florida in 1956, where I completed my education in the Winter Park schools and Rollins College. I then spent 2 years at Ringling School of Art in Sarasota, Florida. I had a varied work career until I was in my 50s. I worked as a professional photography lab, retail sales and management for Walden Books, and had my own foliage nursery. Jerry worked for a construction firm that installed high-purity stainless steel piping for the computer and pharmaceutical industries. He traveled all over the country as an installer and then as a superintendent. I traveled with him often. We decided that I needed some kind of retirement plan, so since I had a degree in education and I had an interest in exceptional education, I returned to college and obtained my master's degree at Nova Southeastern. I worked during the day and went to school at night. I was hired as an ESE teacher at Mount Dora Middle School in 1997. I also worked at DeLand Middle School and Mount Dora High School and retired in 2013. I met Jerry Gillen in the 8th grade, and we were friends all through middle and high school. We started dating after we accidentally bumped into each other at Christmas 1964 in the old Winter Park Mall. We dated intermittently and then seriously before Jerry went to Vietnam in 1967. He was a clerk typist and was assigned to a joint Air Force and Army command office. He was the go-to guy when the colonel and the major needed anything, so he was able to get to know many of the military and civilian people on the base. My brother, Gene, was in Vietnam at the same time Jerry was there. He was a Ranger and was wounded at about the time he was to have rotated back to the U.S. Due to some lost paperwork, he was passed over and wrote to my mother that he would not make it home. My mother contacted me, and since Jerry was able to call me at times, I relayed the news to him. He was able to get permission to walk Gene's orders through the command, and Gene was able to go home. My brother always said that Jerry saved his life in Vietnam. My husband was a remarkable man. He was kind, generous, funny, and loving. We supported each other through wonderful and sometimes not so wonderful times. He loved to cook and bake and had a woodworking shop where he made a beautiful porch swing for us and made and sold wooden boxes.
We're listening here to 78-year-old Ellen Gillen making a statement at her sentencing hearing. She is charged with murdering her terminally ill husband. But we do have to pivot to another one of these big live events that we're monitoring. President Donald Trump meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office. Let's watch.
On the deal. That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire, all of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract, yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
That.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position.
I was
You don't have the
upset.
cards right now. With us, you start having
Not
cards.
playing
But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what you're
You're
speaking
gambling
about?
with
What you're
World
speaking
War
about?
III. And
Yeah.
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country,
I'm
that's
with all
backed
respect to
you
your
far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
you're speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can I-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn
We-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of
accept
times
that
thank
there,
you
accept
to
that-
American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't, please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
it doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
you.
a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make,
Um,
because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you
but
saying?
what
She's
if
asking, what if Russia
Putin
breaks the
breaks
ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken
What if they
ceasefire
broke it?
many
I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right. We'll see what we can do about putting it together. Thank you, sir.
I need the back of your chair.
We'll see. I don't know.
All right, guys, come on. Wait. Hey, guys, come on. Let's move, please.
Right, witnessing there a playback conversation, the meeting with President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, very tense moments there inside of the Oval Office, going back and forth there, the Ukrainian president, the U.S. president, and also Vice President J.D. Vance. We are expecting later on today to have a joint news conference between both of those world leaders. Live Now look there in Washington, D.C. We'll see you back here after this break. Welcome back in, and thanks for joining us here at Live Now from Fox, where just before the commercial break, we were playing out moments from the Oval Office conversation between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, when we showcased that recording, it did start, it seemed like midway through the questionnaire. They are refeeding the entire thing back to us. So let's go ahead and take this right off the top. Again, the Ukrainian president and the U.S. president there in the Oval Office on their visit. Let's watch.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to have President Zelensky of Ukraine, and we've been working very hard, very close. So we've actually known each other for a long time. We've been dealing with each other for a long time, and very well. We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries, I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. and we have something that is a very fair deal. And we look forward to getting in and digging and working and getting some of the rare earth. But it means we're going to be inside, and it's a big commitment from the United States, and we appreciate working with you very much. And we will continue to do that. We have had some very good discussions with Russia. I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We have to negotiate a deal, but we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen. The big thing is the number of soldiers, mostly at this point, but soldiers being killed. You're losing thousands of soldiers. So on both sides, we're losing a lot of soldiers, and we want to see it stop, and we want to see the money get put to different kinds of use, like rebuilding, and we're going to be working very hard. But we've had a lot of very good conversations. I will say, until we came along, the Biden administration didn't speak to Russia whatsoever. They didn't speak to anybody. They just allowed this to continue. And I will say that, I'll say in front of you, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, if I were president, this war would have never happened. We would have had a deal negotiated for you without having to go through what you've gone through. But your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave, and we give them great credit. This was supposed to be over very quickly, and here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself, in the sense that it's been very hard fighting, very tough fighting. They're great fighters, and you have to be very proud of them from that standpoint. But now we want to get it over with. It's enough, right? We want to get it over with. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch. And we'll be having lunch together. We're also discussing some other things, and we appreciate everybody being here. It's somewhat of an exciting moment, but the really exciting moment is when they stop the shooting and we end up with a deal. And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation. And really, I hope that this first document will be first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it. And of course, we count that America will not stop support. Really, for us, it's very important to support and to continue it. I want to discuss it with details further during our conversation, and of course the infrastructure or security guarantees, because for today I understand what Europe is ready to do, and of course I want to discuss with you what United States will be ready to do. And I really count on your strong position to stop Putin. And you said that enough with the war. I think that is very important, Ben, to say these words to Putin at the very beginning of war, because he is a killer and terrorist. But I hope that together we can stop him. But for us, it's very important to, to save our country, our values, our freedom and democracy, and of course, no compromises with the killer about our territories, but it will be later. And of course, what I wanted, we spoke about it by phone with you about the drones production. We have very good drones production. I think the best one in the world for today because of the war. Yes, and of course, we need very much the air defense. You have the best air defense in the world, and really you helped us under attacks of Russians, and I want to speak how we can exchange the licenses. We're open to share the licenses of all our drones with you, of course, with the United States, and we need licenses for quick production of air defense. Even after the war, we need our nation to be calm, that we are secure. So that's why we need this air shield. And of course, about this, I want to speak about the contingents. I think that France and UK already spoke to you, and we know that Europe is ready, but without the United States, they will not be ready to be as strong as we need. And the last point, last not least, about exchange, about our people and children. And you know that these crazy Russians, that they stolen 20,000 of children, Ukrainian children. They changed their names, they changed their families, relatives, and now they're in Russia. We want to bring them back, and really, it's a big dream, task, and goal for me, and our warriors. By the way, Mr. President, we released more than 4,000 warriors from Russian prison, but there are thousands more in the prison. I wanted to share with you some images. How it's just can I now?
Yeah, please.
Some minutes, 1 minute. I just you to understand in what circumstances, in what situation they are, and what the attitude of Russia to our prisoners. That guys, just you before and after. And you see before and after, just you to understand. Now thousands of such guys, ladies and men, there, and that, so they don't eat, they beat them, and they, they do a lot of bad things. So out of, even during the war, there are rules. Everybody knows there are rules during the war. So these guys, they don't have any rules. You see that 50, 60 kilograms left, and a lot of such things. And I didn't want to show you what the changes with images of children, because I will share with you. And I mean, it's looking tragic.
Yep, that's tough stuff.
I wanted very much to give you, and you see it.
Yeah.
This is pastor, by the way. They stolen pastors because it's not Russian church. They stolen pastors and moved pastors to the prison. We, at the end of last year, we brought 3 pastors, and we could exchange them. And this is pastor, you see.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. So I mean, this I wanted to show you, and this. So thank you very much.
We want to get that ended, right?
Yeah. Of course, we will.
And I think we will. And
we have to, of course.
Do you have any questions, please?
Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. With the, how much money is the U.S. going to put into the fund that is being created today, and how does this provide long-term security for Ukraine?
Well, we don't know exactly how much, because we're going to be putting some money in a fund that we're going to get from the raw earth that we're going to be taking and sharing in terms of revenue. So it's going to be a lot of money will be made from the sale and from the use of raw earth. And as you know, our country doesn't have much raw earth. We have a lot of oil and gas, but we don't have a lot of the raw earth. And what we do have is protected by the environmentalists, but that can be unprotected. But still, it's not very much. They have among the best in the world in terms of raw earth. So we're going to be using that, using it for all of the things we do, including AI, and including weapons and the military, and it's really going to very much satisfy our needs. So it's something that just worked out really well. We have a lot of oil, and we have a lot of gas, but we don't have raw earth. So this has just about every component of the raw earth that we need for computers, for all of the things we do. This puts us in great shape.
And on long-term security for Ukraine, how does this provide?
I think they're going to have great luck. I think once we make the agreement, that's going to be 95% of it. They're not going to go back to fighting. I've spoken with President Putin, and I feel very strong. I've known him for a long time, and I feel very strongly that they're very serious about it, and we'll make a deal. And when the deal is made, I don't think we talk about security. Everyone's talking about the other day. All they talked about was security. I said, let me make the deal first. I have to make the deal first. I don't worry about security right now. We have to have a deal, because right now, last week, 2,000 soldiers died on both sides. 2,000, and they're losing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a week. So as we sit here and we talk, people are getting shot and dying on the battlefield. And they're not American soldiers, but they're Russian soldiers and they're Ukrainian soldiers, and we want to be able to stop it. And we want to be able also to spend money on other things. We don't want to. This is a tremendous amount of money, and what the Biden administration did was terrible. They were giving money, but he had no security on the money. Europe, as you know, gave much less money, but they had security. It was in the form of a loan. They get their money back, and we didn't. And now at least we're protected, because the American taxpayer has to be protected too. But this is an incredible agreement for Ukraine, because we have a big investment in their country now, and what they have, very few people have. And we're able to really go forward with very, very high-tech things and many other things, including weaponry that we're going to use in many locations, but that we need for our country.
Mr. President,
This allows us to do this.
Will you continue?
I'm sorry.
Sending military aid?
Yes, go ahead, please.
If I can just, yes. In the document, there is one of the very important points. If we speak about business and investment, we never had LNG terminals in Ukraine. This document will open. I mean, the next documents, but anyway, here we see in the framework, we see a really goodwill for this. LNG terminals for us is very important, and I think for security of European continent. We have the biggest storage, gas storage. We have the biggest in Europe. Yes, yes, and we can use it. Use it for LNG. Use it for LNG, and we will do it. And really, we can help Europe, because Europe really helped. President Trump said that they made less support, but they have our friends, and they are our very supportive partners. They really gave a lot, Mr. President.
They did.
Really, they did.
They gave a lot, but they gave much less.
No.
Much less.
No. No.
No, not you.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. President Trump, you have repeatedly called the deal with Ukraine as a historical one. And as a President of the United States, you make historical decisions in other issues which affect America and other world. So what place in the world history do you want to take? And do you associate yourself with any famous historical figures?
Yeah, I'd say George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. I would say I'm far superior to George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Now, you know I'm only kidding, right? Because when I say that, the fake news is going to go wild. They're going to say he considers himself to be better than Washington. But you never know. You never know. I don't compare myself to anybody. I'm here to do a job. We've had a great 35 days or whatever it might be, a month, a little more than a month. We've accomplished tremendous amounts. Not only this would be a very great achievement if we could get the war stopped and get them back to normalization. I think that's going to happen. We've had very good talks on both sides, as you know. But I think we've done a very good job, just generally. If you look at all of the things we've done in 30 days, they're saying there's never been a opening for a president. The first month, there's never been a first month like we've had. And this is one of the very important things. This, to me, is one of the most important things, because we have tremendous death taking place as we speak, and I don't want to have that. You know, think of the parents, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine, think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
They came to our territory.
Should have never started. This would have, if I were president, this would have never started.
Mr. President, where Mr. President, will you continue sending military aid to Ukraine after the U.S. signs this agreement with Ukraine?
Yeah, we're going to be continuing.
To President Zelensky, do you feel like the U.S. is on your side, that President Trump is on your side at this moment?
Right.
What do you think?
He wants to know, do you think that, sort of a stupid question. I guess we wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
I think that the United States on our side from the very beginning of occupation, and I think that President Trump on our side, and of course, I'm sure that the United States President will not stop support. This is crucial for us. It's important for us. Yes. And Putin, the president, speaks about the people and the soldiers which are dying, but they came to our territory, they came to our land. They began this war, and they have to stop. And I think this is the question, really the most important question. Can President Trump, I hope yes, with some other allies to stop Putin withdraw these enemies, our enemy, withdraw these troops from our land. And I think that you asked about the history, I think that if President or when he will stop Putin, if President Trump will bring peace to our country, I think he will be on this wall.
We've had very, very good talks.
Mr. Aid to Ukraine.
President Zelensky just said that there would be no compromises with Vladimir Putin. I just wanted to ask both of you, firstly, are there compromises that you think that President Zelensky is going to have to make? And President Zelensky, is there anything that you might be thinking that you may be able to offer or bring to the table, for example, elections? Thank you.
I think you're going to have to always make compromises. You can't do any deals without compromises. So certainly he's going to have to make some compromises, but hopefully they won't be as big as some people think you're going to have to make. That's all. That's all we can do. I'm here as an arbitrator, as a mediator to a certain extent between two parties that have been very hostile. To put it mildly, they've been very hostile. There's been a vicious war. There's been a vicious war. You know, it's a very level battlefield, and those bullets go out, and as I've said many times, we were talking about it with Pete, many times the only thing stopping those bullets is a human body. And in the case we're talking about, generally young human bodies are stopping a lot of bullets. It's dead level. That's why it's great farmland. It's great land. It's great farmland, but there's very little protection against the bullets that are being, and other things that are being shot. So all I can do is see if I can get everybody at the table and get an agreement. And I think we're going to end up with an agreement. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably be even here today.
Mr. President, I've got two questions for you. You think ultimately your legacy will be the peacemaker and not the president that led this country into another war and ended foreign wars? And I've got a question.
I hope it will. I mean, I hope I'm going to be remembered as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing if we could do this. I'm doing this to save lives more than anything else. Second is to save a lot of money, but I consider that to be far less important. So I hope I'm going to, thank you, Brian, for that question. It was a nice question. I hope I'll be known and recognized as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing to solve. This is a very dangerous situation. You know, this could lead to a third world war. This was headed in the wrong direction. If this election were lost, if we didn't win this election, and we won it by a lot, that was a mandate. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. We won everything. The districts, you look at the areas of red, take a look at a map. This was a big mandate, and this was one of the things I said, we're going to get this thing settled. If we didn't win, I think this could have very well ended up in a third world war, and that would not have been a good situation. What was your second question?
And my second question for President Zelensky, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting the dignity of this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish. Okay. Yes, maybe something like yours. Yes. That'd be great. Maybe something better. I don't know. Yeah. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Trump. You said yesterday that you have.
Are you going to send more arms to Ukraine in case there's no peace?
Yeah, we're going to have arms to Ukraine. Yeah, sure. Hopefully, I won't have to send very much because hopefully we're going to have it finished. We're looking forward to finishing this quickly. We're not looking forward to sending a lot of arms. We're looking forward to getting the war finished so we can do other things. But we very much appreciate the agreement because we needed what they had, and we're treating, our country is now treated fairly. Biden didn't do that. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. This should have never happened. This should have never started. But, sure, the answer is yes, but hopefully we won't have to send much because I'm looking forward to getting it done quickly, very quickly.
Does that still provide security guarantees, Mr. President?
I don't want to talk about security yet because I want to get the deal done. You fall into the same trap like everybody else. A million times you say it over and over. I want to get the deal done. Security is so easy. That's about 2% of the problem. I'm not worried about security. I'm worried about getting the deal done. The security is the easy part. Security is very nice. Everybody stopped shooting. And now will Europe put people there? I know France is going to. I know the UK is going to. I know other countries are going to, and they happen to be right next door. We haven't committed, but we could conceivably. You know, we have security in a different form. We'll have workers there digging, taking the raw earth so that we can create a lot of great product in this country. So in that sense, you have something, but we haven't determined that yet. I will say, in speaking to France and in speaking to, and they were here, as you know, last week and just the other day, they have committed to a lot of security. I don't think you're going to need much security. I think once this deal gets done, it's over. Russia's not going to want to go back, and nobody's going to want to go back. When this deal ends, I really believe this deal is going to be over. Question? Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. President, thank you. You had Joseph Macron and Keir Starmer at the White House this past week, both of whom praised your courage and conviction to lead the pathway towards peace.
Yes.
Part of that involved, though, re-engaging Russia in diplomatic relations, something that previous leaders lacked the conviction to do so. What gave you the moral courage and conviction to step forward and lead that?
Well, I love this guy. Who are you with?
One American News, sir.
Well, that's why I like him. One American News does a great job. I like the question. I think it's a very good question. It's a pathway to peace. It's a pathway to getting something solved. And I feel that as the head of this country, I have an obligation to do that. Plus, you know, we're very much involved. We got involved. It's too bad we got involved because there should have been no involvement, because there should have been no war. And there shouldn't have been October 7th. That would have never happened. As you know, Iran was broke. They had no money to give to Hezbollah. They had no money to give to Hamas. They were stone cold broke. And then under Biden, they became rich as hell. They went from no money to $300 billion in a period of 4 years. And they gave a lot of that money away, and you see what happened. And that's a real mess also that we hope to be able to solve. But no, I appreciate your question very much. I feel I have an obligation to try and do something to stop the death.
If I can answer. Yes, if I can answer.
Please,
sorry. Please.
And I do like your clothing, by the way.
Yeah, really?
Even though I think he's a great guy, by the way. But I don't know if you two like each other. But you know what? I think he's dressed.
I like this guy.
I think he's dressed beautiful.
So I have more serious things than answer on such questions. I will answer on more serious questions if I can. Yeah. So please, about security guarantees. And about just ceasefire. We can't just speak about ceasefire and speak and speak. It will not work. Just ceasefire will never work, because I'm like the president. I have this experience, and not only me. Ukraine before my presidency, from the 2014, Putin broken 25 times. 25 times he broken his own signature. 25 times he broken ceasefire.
But he never broke to me. He never broke to me.
No, you were the president. You were the president during.
He never broke to me.
In 2016, you've been the president, Mr. President. You've been the president, but he had, of course, not with you, but he had during those period, he had conversations with our side. And we had Normandy format, you know, the France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia. And he broken 25 times. That's why we will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. Security guarantees, maybe President is right about this document and other, but this document is not enough. Strong army is enough, because his soldiers afraid, Putin's soldiers afraid of our soldiers when we're strong enough. If we are not strong enough, if we are empty, if our storage is empty, we can't defend our land. Today, you know, he knows that we have all the world knows that we have meeting. Yes, why he's using ballistic? Putin today using ballistic on our hospitals, schools, and etc. Ballistic. So he knows that we are here, and that President Trump is really have goodwill to stop this war. And you hear now the president. So why he's using? So he doesn't want to stop. He doesn't want. But I hope that we will do it. Really, we'll do it. Security, when we speak about security guarantees, when the Europeans are ready for contingents, They need USA backstop. If there will not be United States, we will not never have any contingents, strong contingents from the Europeans, because they don't want to divide alliance, connection between the United States and the main and strongest ally and Europeans. And this is crucial, this is important. That's what we want to speak about very much. This is very important. And air defense. So air defense, really, we have big deficit with all these systems, and we need to provide this. We need it very much. Otherwise, Putin will never stop, and will go further and further. He doesn't want. He hates us, you know? It's not about me. He hates Ukrainians. He thinks that we are not a nation. He thinks, and he shared these thoughts, I think maybe with your team also, I don't know. But with all the Europeans, in media, officially and not, he always said that there is no such country, such nation, such language, and such life like Ukrainian. No, he really doesn't respect all the Ukrainians, and he wants to destroy us. And you are right, Mr. President, that's 2%. This document, maybe other documents, it's a very good start, very good, but it will not enough to stop this person.
Should Russia pay to rebuild Ukraine?
Mr. President, under these
Should Russia pay to rebuild Ukraine?
They have to pay.
This question.
This is the rule. This is the rule of the war. This is the rule of the war. During all the centuries, all the history, this is the rule of the war. Who began, those pay.
Do you agree?
This is the rule. Putin began this war. He has to pay all money for innovation. He has to pay. Of course, some Russian assets, what we have in Europe, about 300 billions, we can use them. We can use for innovation and buy military support from the United States also. We can do it, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
Under these circumstances, do you envision a trilateral summit with Putin and President Zelensky?
Wait 1 second.
I asked this question that you didn't like because I wanted to know if you want to position yourself in the middle between Russia and Ukraine, or on the Ukraine's side.
No, I'm in the middle. I want to solve this thing. I'm for both. I want to get it solved, and it's wonderful to speak badly about somebody else, but I want to get it solved. If we can solve it, great. If we can't solve it, they're going to have to fight it out, and who knows what's going to happen. But I want to see it get solved.
May I follow up? One more question about U.S. troops in Europe. After Russian invasion of Ukraine, your predecessor sent additional troops to Eastern Europe, including Poland, my country.
Yeah.
Are you committed to keeping these troops on the eastern flank of NATO in the future?
I'm very committed to Poland. I think Poland has really stepped up and done a great job for NATO. As you know, they paid more than they had to. They are one of the finest groups of people I've ever known. I'm very committed to Poland.
What about Baltics?
Poland's in a tough neighborhood, you know.
What about the Baltics?
The Baltics, they got a lot of, it's a tough neighborhood too, but we're committed. We're going to be very committed, and we're committed to NATO. But NATO has to step up, and the Europeans have to step up more than they have. And I want to see them equalize, because they are in for far less than we're in, and they should be at least equal. You understand that? Why is the United States, we have an ocean in between, why is the United States in for so much more money and other things as Europe? With that being said, and as you said, they've also been obviously very helpful, but we have put in far more than they have, and I think they should equalize.
Mr. President,
please go ahead.
Can I ask you about the agreement again today? What changed between the first time that Secretary Bessent gave President Zelensky the agreement and today for the signing?
We made a deal. So
what was the deciding factor?
I'm a business person. We made a deal. That's what changed. I didn't think we were going to make a deal, and we ended up making the deal, so that changed.
Mr. President, what and how do you envision a trilateral summit with President Zelensky and Putin?
I don't know, but well, they don't like each other, I can tell you that. Okay? They do not like each other. This is not a love match, and it's unfortunate. That's why you're in this situation. The United States should not have allowed this to happen, okay? The United States, run by a man that didn't know much, I'm going to be very nice, run by an incompetent person, very incompetent person, should never have allowed this to happen. I've stopped wars. I've stopped many wars. My people will tell you, I stopped wars that nobody ever heard about. I stopped wars before they ever started. You can look at some of, I could give you a lot of nations that would tell you right now they were probably going to war. I could tell you right now there's a nation thinking about going to war on something that nobody in this room has ever even heard about. Two smaller nations, but big, still big. And I think I've stopped it. But this should have never happened.
Mr. President,
Sorry, just a second. About any negotiations. First of all, I want really to tell you, and I think that everybody understands that Ukraine, modern Ukrainians, nobody wants to stop this war. But at the future, any negotiations, it's understandable that two sides of the war, not Russia and the United States, because this is not the war between Russia and the United States. This is war of Russia against Ukraine and Ukrainian people. So these two sides will be at the anyway will be at the negotiation table. Then of course United States, like the strongest partner of the Ukraine, and of course Europe. I think Europe is very important. I want to speak about it with the president. Yes, Europe is very important for us because we really defend Europe for today. All Europeans really recognize that we are defending the line, and they have real life, and our people are dying. That's why they helped us. And also, it's about the NATO. Yes, between, like the president said, you have big, nice ocean. Yes, between us. But if we will not stay, Russia will go further to Baltics and to Poland, by the way. But first to the Baltics. It's understandable for them because they've been in the USSR. You know, they've been one of the republics of the USSR, and Putin wants to bring them back to his empire. It's a fact. And when he will go there, if we will not stay, you will fight. Your American soldiers, it doesn't matter, do you have ocean or not, your soldiers will fight.
Mr. President, would you be willing to visit Ukraine, maybe Kyiv or Odessa, which is known to be at the river or Black Sea?
It was my question.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to talk about Odessa now. Let's not talk about Odessa. I want to talk about making a deal, getting peace. We don't have to talk about Odessa, but a lot of cities have been destroyed. A lot of cities that are not recognizable. There's not a building standing.
No.
And a lot of things have
Mr. President, you have to come and to look. No. We have very good cities. Yes, a lot of things have been destroyed, but mostly cities alive, and people work, and children go to school. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes closer to front line, children have to go to underground schools or online, but we live. Ukraine is fighting, and Ukraine lives. This is very important. And maybe it's Putin is sharing this information that he destroyed us. No, he lost 700,000 people, 700,000 soldiers. He lost everything. Yes. So.
Mr. President, one more. I mentioned Poland.
Please go ahead.
When did you last speak with President Putin, and what did he say that?
A couple of days ago.
And what did he tell you that gave you the assurance that he wanted peace?
Well, that's what I do. My whole life is deals. I know pretty good. And I've known him for a long time. I've dealt with him for a long time. He had to suffer through the Russia hoax. You know, Russia was a hoax. That was all Biden. It was nothing to do with him. So he had to suffer through that, and he was able to do that. I think that he wants to make a deal, and he'd like to see it end. That's all I do. That's what I do. My whole life, that's what I do is make deals. And I'm in the middle of a mess because this is a real mess. It's a very dangerous one. If this doesn't get solved now, it's not going to get solved for a long time. So I hope we're going to get it solved. In the back, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prime Minister Starmer claimed repeatedly that his government believes in free speech and was not engaged in censorship. But his country's government arrests people for memes and thought crimes, and even more worrisome is pressuring American companies to censor Americans on its behalf. How can he be a reliable, trustworthy partner when he says things that are demonstrably false on such an important topic?
Well, we actually spoke to him about that yesterday, and we thought they took it very, very much too far. JD was very strong on it. So was I. So was Marco. and we've been speaking to him about it. Marco, would you like to say something about that?
We have concerns, obviously, with the conduct of those, particularly as it impacts Americans. And there's real concern that American speech, which is online, could fall into the hands of British or any country's jurisdiction. And so this is a point the Vice President made at Munich, and I think it's a very compelling one, that what unites us with Europe, as much as anything else, is these shared values, and one of them being free speech. And so if Americans are threatened by it, we're going to need to take action in that regard.
Mr. President. It's actually a very important question.
We spoke about this in detail with the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary, and others at lunch yesterday. And I know that Secretary of Commerce Lutnick followed up in private meetings last night. This is really important. The principle that will guide us is we believe in free speech in this country, and we'll fight for it for American citizens.
Mr. President, on the deal, is there any other oil and gas component to the deal? Is it all critical?
A little bit. We'll see.
On LNG?
But we're not really looking for that so much. We got a lot. We have more than anybody in the world, by far. So no, we're not talking about it too much, but a little bit. I think it affects also, but for the most part, no.
And sir, is there any agreement from Ukraine to purchase U.S. LNG as part of the deal, or is that on the table at all?
No, we don't need that.
Some of those
Mr. President, I
minerals
just
are
wanted
in
to
the
ask you
Mr.
about,
President.
you just mentioned that you'd spoken to Vladimir Putin a couple of days ago. Just to be clear, that's a new call, not the one that you...
I've spoken to him on numerous occasions.
Okay, and how was the latest call? What did you discuss? How did it go?
Are you serious with that question?
I am, I'd love to know.
It went well. I think we're going to have a deal.
On the minerals deal, Mr. President, some of those minerals are in the east of Ukraine, not far from the front lines and in areas that Russia has occupied. Will you direct President Putin to withdraw his forces from those areas if there's U.S. interest?
Well, we'll take a look at the time. We have a lot of area. It's a very big area we're talking about, so we'll take a look. I'll study that and I'll see.
And who would protect those minerals if they are U.S. interests? Would that be Ukrainian forces?
They'll be protected.
European
The agreement
forces?
will protect them.
U.S.
The
forces?
agreement, yeah, we're signing an agreement. You know?
Right, but what if Russia tries to invade or there's Russian aggression in those spots?
I just told you I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
You know, they ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions. Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings. I don't think they're going to survive. Let's go. Please, go ahead.
I already mentioned Poland. Poland was under Russian control for decades after the Second World War. When I was a kid, I looked at the United States not only as a most powerful country, richest country in the world, the country that has great music, great movies, great muscle cars, but also as a force for good. And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America. And for the good of the world, I'm aligned with the world. And I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So He occupied it, our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards. You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
This entire meeting?
No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
answer? Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards.
Thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you'd take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think?
What's this negotiation?
This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right. We'll see what we can do about putting it together. Thank you, sir.
And I need the back of your chair.
We'll see. I don't know.
Guys, come on. Let's move, please.
All right, so you just heard there that entire joint press conference that was held inside of the Oval Office. And then moments ago, take a look at this video that we just got in from outside of the White House. As you're going to see there, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky exiting. Now that we know that that joint news conference that was set to happen later on today between both of those world leaders has effectively been canceled. It remains to be seen what is going to happen going forward here between the negotiations of the United States and Ukraine. It may be possible that later on today we are going to get some remarks from President Zelensky, although not that joint conference that we were anticipating with both he and President Donald Trump after that tense exchange, about 45 minutes that we showcased here with that playback tape of the Oval Office meeting in which several reporters were asking questions to both of those presidents. Vice President J.D. Vance also there in attendance making some remarks. And you saw really the tense moments towards the end of that. We do also have a recent statement from President Donald Trump in which he does say that, quote, I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. And goes on to say, I don't want advantage, I want peace. He can come back when he is ready for peace. So that was posted on his social media platform, Truth Social, just moments ago. And then this is just a little bit behind as we saw the Ukrainian president exiting there from the White House. You're going to see that vehicle departing there after his visit and his meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. We're going to keep monitoring this situation. We do want to step away for a brief commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to recap this entire scene that we just witnessed, as well as bring you in full that latest statement from President Donald Trump. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you all for being with us here at Live Now from Fox after we just showcased in full that entire meeting from the Oval Office, a press conference featuring President Donald Trump and also Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The last 10 minutes being very tense between both of those world leaders. And now we have just learned that that news conference that was set to happen later today between Trump and Zelensky has been canceled. Taking a look here at a post from Fox News correspondent Jackie Heinrich saying that the White House confirms press conference is canceled, deal signing is off. Zelensky's SUV waiting by the West Wing door. He has not yet emerged. However, we did showcase that he has effectively left from the White House. And I also want to bring up that full statement that we just got from President Donald Trump regarding this entire exchange that you just witnessed. This was posted a few moments ago on his Truth Social platform. He says this, quote, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation. Under such fire and pressure, it's amazing what comes out through emotion. and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. Let's get back and replay those moments here from when Zelensky was leaving the Oval Office and the White House. Take a look at this. Same video that we showcased for you just moments ago. But again, a very tense exchange as we continue to see what's going to come of more of these negotiations. And in fact, we also continue to have this live picture from outside there in the White House. Now, as we've been talking about, and you did just see, it was the last 10 minutes of that nearly 45-minute engagement that was very tense between President Trump and also President Zelensky. Zelensky there had urged skepticism about Russia's commitment to diplomacy, citing Moscow's years of broken commitments on the global stage. And then we saw Vice President J.D. Vance telling President Zelensky, quote, "With Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office to try to litigate this in front of the American media." President Zelensky there trying to object, prompting President Trump to eventually chime in there saying, quote, "You're gambling with the lives of millions of people." And now it remains in the balance what's going to happen today. At that news conference, we're supposed to see that signing of that rare minerals deal, which has continued to be one of the major talking points regarding this entire meeting. And it went very different from what we saw just yesterday with President Trump after he hosted the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. They also had that Oval Office conversation in which they answered questions from the press. We saw something similar a few weeks ago when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to visit President Trump here at the White House. So we were expecting that today. It would be that press conference from inside of the Oval Office where both world leaders would make those remarks, answering questions from the press. And then later on, it was supposed to be that joint news conference, similar to what we saw yesterday with the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. But as you can see, the latest is that that press conference has been canceled. The deal signing is off, according to Fox News correspondent Jackie Heinrich. We're going to be monitoring the situation very closely. It is possible that later today, President Zelensky may make his remarks on his own without having that joint news conference with President Trump. And we also may hear some more comments from President Trump because, again, all of these are planned events. So it was expected that we were going to hear both of those world leaders speaking in conjunction. However, after that tense exchange, it remains to be seen how these negotiations and the partnership between the U.S. and Ukraine goes moving forward. But this is that live look just outside of the White House. No other live pictures from inside of the White House just yet, but if we do get those, we'll bring them to you in full. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor this entire situation, bringing you all of those updates. One more time before we head to our final commercial break, I just want to read again this statement from President Trump regarding that interaction with President Zelensky in the Oval Office, in which he says, quote, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure." It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. We'll be right back. welcome back, and thank you all for being with us here at Live Now from Fox. I want to remind you that we do want to pivot now to some more breaking news headlines, other live events from around the country. But if you do want to watch that full exchange between President Trump and President Zelensky in the Oval Office, we do have it in its entirety on our YouTube page. You can watch it there. Let's continue with international headlines now, giving you a live look outside of the hospital in Rome, in which Pope Francis is still hospitalized, continuing to battle pneumonia. And this is the latest update, according to the Vatican and some reporting from the Associated Press, in which they say this: Pope Francis suffered a bronchial spasm on Friday that resulted in him breathing and vomit, requiring non-invasive mechanical ventilation. That's according to the Vatican. And what they say is a setback for the Pope's 2-week-long battle against double pneumonia. The 88-year-old Pope responded well, with a good level of gas exchange, and remained conscious and alert at all times. The development did mark a setback in what has been 2 successive days of increasingly upbeat reports from doctors treating Pope Francis at Rome's Gemelli Hospital since February 14th. And this is a picture outside of Gemelli Hospital there in Rome. Now, the episode, which occurred in the early afternoon, resulted in, quote, sudden worsening of the respiratory picture. Doctors did decide to keep his prognosis as guarded. The Vatican has already made alternative plans for Ash Wednesday next week, making clear that Pope Francis still had a long road ahead. Cardinal Angelo De Donatis, a Vatican official and former vicar of Rome, will preside over the March 5th ceremony and procession that inaugurates the church's solemn Lenten season leading up to Easter in April. Now, earlier on Friday, Francis had spent the morning alternating high flows of supplemental oxygen with a mask and praying in the chapel. He had had breakfast, read the day's newspapers, and was receiving respiratory physiotherapy. Doctors did not resume referring to Pope Francis in critical condition, which has been absent from their statements for the last 3 days. That is just the latest regarding the Pope. Coming up in the next hour, about 2:40 p.m. Eastern time, we are expecting to get a live look as another prayer service is going to be held for the Pope, taking place in St. Peter's Square. It's going to be similar to several of those